Good afternoon. Joining us on the line now is Sháá Wasmud. She became the only licensed female boxing promoter in the world, working with the legendary super middleweight champion Chris Eubank. She then set up her own PR company and met Sir James Dyson, who became her first client, and she helped grow the Dyson brand to what it is today. She's had multiple online businesses, including one with Sir Bob Geldof. The 10th anniversary edition of her book, Stop Talking, Start Doing, A Kick in the Pants in 6 parts, has now been published. Welcome to the show, Sháá.
Hi, really glad to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. And what a lot there is to talk about. So you published this book initially 10 years ago, yeah?
I know, it's crazy to think this book literally changed my life and my business, if I'm being honest. It went to #1 in the WH Smith's nonfiction charts immediately, and then it stayed there for a record-breaking 14 months in a row. And I don't think that record's ever been broken. So I think there's this topic of procrastination and getting in our own ways is obviously a really popular topic.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure everyone can relate to a time when they've had a great idea or just thought, oh, I really want to do this, whether it's lose weight or write a book or, you know, there's like a million things that it could be, and just not done it. How do we kind of get our minds in gear to just crack on and do what we want to do?
Well, one of the things that I think is really important, and I really took this into consideration when I was writing the book, was to give practical tips. So, you know, if you've got the book there, it's not War and Peace. It's like, it's a short book, it's inhalable content. And I think that's how we need to treat trying to do the things we want to do, like chunking it down into manageable bite-sized chunks. So if I give you the example, there's very few people who decide they want to run a marathon and go put their trainers on and then walk out the door and run a marathon for the first time. They start by running 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 5 miles, and they build it up. And what tends to happen is we set ourselves these massive goals, and then because they just look so big, we think, oh my God, that's just no way I'm going to be able to do that. So we kind of do nothing. And the truth is, I think almost all of us procrastinate on I reckon a daily basis, but at the very least a weekly basis on something, whether that's going to the gym to get fitter, or whether it's, you know, applying for a promotion, or whether it's planning how you're going to do that move to the country or the beach or to a different country altogether. And I feel like for me, my kind of whole mission in life is to help people fulfill their greatest human potential, because I think that it's a sad thing to get to the end of your life and look back and think about all the things you'd wish you'd done, that you'd wish you'd tried to do, but just never quite got round to. So if I can help anyone get out of their own way and stop the talking, start the doing, and actually really start really truly living life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I want to ask you about some of the amazing things that you've done so far in your life. How did you get involved with boxing promoting?
Well, I'll make a very long story very short, and it went like this. I was for those, you know, who don't know anything about me, I want to caveat this with, I grew up single parent family on a council estate, first one in my family to ever go to university, first one in my family to buy my own home. And so everything that I've achieved has been achieved with a backdrop of really not coming from you know, a kind of an environment where I had those role models. So I've kind of had to find my own way in life. And as a result, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and that's part of the journey. So I've really just had this attitude about trying to grab opportunities where I saw them from a very young age. And I won a competition whilst I was at the London School of Economics at university to write for Cosmopolitan magazine, and I stole some letter-headed paper from the editor's office, and I wrote to Chris Eubank, and I said I'd been commissioned by them to interview him, which I obviously hadn't. And lo and behold, he accepted the interview, and then I had to go back to the editor and fess up to what I had done, and she was just totally amused. She was like, Sháá, what on earth would make you think that a Cosmo reader wants to read about boxing? I was like, well, I do. And she's like, yeah, but you're not normal. And I was like, okay, well, fair enough. I'm probably not. She said, but, you know, she was great, because instead of being pissed off that I'd taken the paper, she was like, you know, I really value, you know, your chutzpah and your ability to try to make things happen. But, you know, we're probably not the best publication. And so I went and did the interview, and she was brilliant. She helped me sell it to a national newspaper, and it paid off all my student loans.
Oh, so that's wow. How that started. Absolutely brilliant. She was
a phenomenal woman. And then at the end of the interview, Chris offered me a job. And so before I knew it, I found myself in the world of boxing, which was a baptism of fire, to say the very least.
Brilliant stuff. And then after that, you set up your own PR company and met Sir James Dyson, who became your first client. That's quite a first client to get.
I mean, honestly, I have been so fortunate, and I don't pretend that I haven't been. Luck does absolutely play a part in life for all of us. But I also believe it's about making the most of those opportunities. So I met James through a friend's dad who happened to be helping him with some work. And this was just after James had won his lawsuit against Amway. For those of you who don't know, again, James was turned down by every VC, every private equity, every bank, every manufacturer told him his idea was rubbish and nobody would ever buy a vacuum cleaner without a bag. So the only way that Dyson got funded was because a company in America called Amway, they basically tried to copy him, and he took them to court and he won. And the money that he won from that court case is what funded the company that is now a £1 billion company today. And I just met James through a random connection, and, you know, we hit it off, and I have been very fortunate to have some incredible people in my life who have believed in me, probably, if I'm being honest, more than I believed in myself at that time, and have really helped me, I guess, you know, leapfrog my way into my career.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It must have been, I mean, wonderful working with him and the brand and developing the brand. I mean, it's one of the most well-known brands in the world today.
It is. And I started literally around his kitchen table, worked with James for 5 years. In fact, you'll see in the book, he wrote the foreword. And you know, that means a lot to me that all these years later, that relationship is still going strong. And it was, you know, he was genuinely a huge example of somebody who stopped talking and started doing. And if you think about it, engineers and product designers, they are so used to creating things that don't quite work the first time round. So usually when you see an end product, like you see the Dyson vacuum that you see today, people don't realize there were hundreds of iterations of that didn't quite work before the final one that everybody sees. So what happens is people see the final success, but they don't see all the things that had to happen to get there. And I think if more people realized what it takes to have a success, we'd be less afraid of failing on the way.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And your online business with Sir Bob Geldof, what was that?
Well, again, another chance encounter. We set up one of the very, very early online travel companies called deckchair.com, which actually got sold. I think we were probably only 18 months old when that business was sold. And so again, I was very fortunate. I was in the right place at the right time with the right connections, but also I believed in myself and put myself forward for things. And it doesn't always work, right? It doesn't always work. I want people to understand that I'm not like this, I don't know. I'm not the golden goose, but I do believe that when you actually just try more and more things, when you actually do more and think less, when you talk less, when you just try to do things, you're obviously going to have better results, because you can't, I know it sounds like a cheesy thing to say, but you can't score if you don't shoot a goal for a goal, right? I mean, that's really how life works.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you've got to try, you've got to go for it. You know, with business, I suppose, a lot of people will have, well, not a lot necessarily, but, you know, people will have a good idea, but then have no idea how to kind of take the next step. But of course, all the information is out there. You know, Google is a great tool to have. And, you know, you just kind of need to do the research into how to take the next step and go for it.
one of the beautiful things about being in the world that we live in today is that everything is available to everyone. We have information overload. And so sometimes actually the biggest problem is we have too much information. But the truth is, as you said, if you want to get fit, if you want to learn to play the ukulele, if you want to climb Mount Everest, if you want to get a promotion, if you want to move house, if you want to set up your own business, if you want to get married, if you want to get divorced, whatever it is that you want to do, you've got online resources to help you do it. But the key thing for me, and a top tip for how you stop talking and start doing, is that you've got to have a very clear goal of what you want. So rather than trying to do 10 things, pick 2 things that you really, really want to do. Then chunk them down. What is the first step that you need to take? And then the third tip would be make yourself publicly accountable. So if I said to you, right, I'm going to run a half marathon in April, and I'm going to tell you right now that that's what I'm going to do. And then you're going to be checking up on me saying, okay, have you started your training yet? No, I haven't. The truth is, when you're accountable, you don't want to say, no, you haven't. But if nobody knows what you're doing, nobody realizes you're not doing it. So when you hold yourself publicly accountable, it could be on social media, it could be with your friends, your family, your partner. In fact, the ideal situation is, involve them in whatever your goal is that you want to achieve, and get them to champion you and cheerlead you and keep you accountable. Because really, one of the things I talk about in the book is how it's important to recognize that discipline dominates motivation when you're trying to achieve any goal. And all that really means, it's not like I'm trying to say we all need to join the army, but discipline is when you do the things that you want to do to get the result, or to do the thing that you want to do even when you don't feel like it. And the gym is a really good example of this, because the truth is, it's much easier to get up in the summer when it's nice and warm and sunny and bright outside early and go for a run or go to the gym than it is in December when, quite frankly, it's just dark and grey and miserable all day long. But discipline is when you say, hold up a second, if I want to reach this goal, I'm going to have to go even when I don't feel like it, because what I'm trying to achieve is more important to me than how I feel in the moment. So that's when the discipline dominates the motivation.
One of the things you talk about in the book are mind monkeys and how to control the mind monkey. What's a mind monkey?
Oh, we've all got them. And the irony of this book is genuinely that, so if we all understand the concept of self-sabotage, so self-sabotage is just when we get in our own way. So let's say, for example, we want to lose weight, we want to get fit, but then we end up sitting, eating a whole entire, tub of ice cream, watching Netflix. Or you want the promotion, but you keep thinking about it, and then you never really look for the promotion, and you never put yourself forward for the promotion. So that's forms of self-sabotage. Well, one of the keys is to be self-aware on how you do this. And the irony is, my number one way to self-sabotage any kind of success or progress or change in my life or my business is to procrastinate. So I literally wrote the book for myself, because I knew that every time I was procrastinating on something, I was procrastinating on the very things that I wanted the most. And I find this to be true for almost everyone. The things that aren't really that important to us, they're not really that meaningful, we go about doing them. But the things that really matter to us, for some bizarre reason, these mind monkeys give us all these reasons why not to do something. Wow, just stay in your little comfort zone. Don't put your head above the parapet in case anybody sees you. No, you're going to be much safer just doing what you've always done, because if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And so those mind monkeys are those little negative chatter that keeps us in our place. But actually what we've got to do is we've got to break free of them. And you can hear them and you can say, thank you very much. Or you can use some expletives and tell them to go somewhere else. But you have to ignore them. You have to ignore them. You have to have and by the way, these goals don't have to be lofty goals. They don't have to be to set up a business. They don't have to be to climb Kilimanjaro. But the key for me is that I think almost all of us have things that we want to do. You want to do up the spare bedroom, but you wanted to do up the spare bedroom for 2 years. You want to paint the living room, but you wanted to do that for the last 18 months. It can be a big thing or a little thing, but every time we procrastinate and put off doing the things that we want to do, we kind of make it harder to make progress in any other area of our lives. So it's a very easy book to read, and it is super practical tips and example of just simply how to get out of our own ways, and actually get on with doing the things that we really want to do so we don't look back in our lives with any kind of regret.
Yeah, definitely. Who wants regret?
None of us.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you about the 6-Figure Club, which you created about 5 years ago. What's that?
So for me, coming from my background, as I said, first generation to go to university, to buy my own home, to, be financially empowered. Financial empowerment has been a big driving force for me. And what I know for sure is that when people start to earn 6 figures a year, whether that's in their business or in their income, people's lives change. And that's the point at which you're able to create generational wealth. And for me, that is crucial because historically, the reason why the rich have always got richer and the poor have stayed poorer is because generation is passed down. So people would inherit houses, they'd inherit property, they'd inherit assets, they'd inherit shares. So obviously, if you've inherited, 350,000 from a great aunt or your grandmother, that's a lot easier for you to get on the property ladder than if you grow up on a council estate where nobody owned their own property. So for me, it's crucial to teach anybody who's running their own business how to not just make money, but how to actually keep money, because I think we're not really taught these things in school, right? No. And even when you go into business, you might be taught how to make money in your business, or you might be able to figure it out. But it's a whole separate lesson to learn to understand, well, how do I keep this money and how do I manage this money so that this money is actually, helping me create generational wealth, not just for myself to buy, a nice house or home, but also how do I start to create generational wealth that creates a legacy and financial empowerment for future generations. That's just hugely, hugely important to me.
Definitely. Great idea. Well, if people want to stop talking and start doing, then they need to get a copy of the book. That's what it's called. And it's available on our website, tre.radio. It's by Sháá Wasmud, who we've been chatting with today. Sháá, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.